How much more heat can our planet endure before it reaches a point of no return? Welcome to a conversation that's not just about us, but about every life form that calls this planet home. We're talking about global warming, a topic that has moved from the fringes of scientific discussion to the very heart of our daily lives. It's a reality that engulfs us all, a common thread that binds every corner of our world, from the sweltering equator to the freezing poles. You see, our planet is running a fever, and it's been getting worse. The mercury is climbing higher every year, and it's not just us humans who are feeling the heat. It's the polar bears losing their icy homes, the coral reefs bleaching under the stress, and the forests gasping for breath as wildfires rage. But let's not get lost in the doom and gloom. This isn't a story of despair. It's a story of urgency, a call to action. Because global warming isn't a far-off problem. It's happening right here, right now. And it's not just about hotter summers or melting ice caps. It's about entire ecosystems thrown off balance, about species pushed to the brink of extinction, about our very survival on this planet. You might be wondering why all the fuss about a degree or two. After all, what harm could such a small change do? But here's the thing. A global increase of even 1 degree Celsius can have catastrophic effects. More intense heat waves, rising sea levels, more extreme weather events. These are not just predictions. They're already happening. And if we continue on our current path, we're looking at a future that's not just warmer, but wilder and far less predictable. So, how much more heat can our planet endure before it reaches a point of no return? It's a question that looms over our heads every day, a question that demands our immediate attention and action. The COP26 conference in Glasgow concluded with a global agreement aimed at capping global warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius. This pivotal gathering of world leaders and climate experts resulted in a deal that was met with a mixed bag of reactions, ranging from hopeful optimism to profound disappointment. One of the most significant points of contention was the language surrounding coal usage. India, a country heavily reliant on this fossil fuel for its energy needs, proposed to phase down rather than phase out coal. This seemingly subtle shift in terminology sparked a notable amount of controversy, yet the deal persevered, for the alternative was a potential collapse of the negotiations. The United States and the European Union found themselves in intense discussions with China and India, 2 of the world's largest carbon emitters, about the phasing out of coal. A sense of urgency underscored these conversations, with the COP26 president even issuing an apology for the handling of the process. Developing nations voiced their criticisms of the agreement, arguing for special circumstances to be considered in the fight against climate change. They highlighted the need to balance environmental concerns with their development agendas and poverty eradication efforts. It's a complex issue, one that highlights the stark divide between the developed and developing world when it comes to climate action. However, it wasn't all criticism. Despite its imperfections, the deal found support among poor and small island nations. These countries, which are often the most vulnerable to the effects of climate change, expressed a willingness to work with the agreement, imperfect as it is. Their support underscored the dire need for action, a call echoed by environmentalists worldwide. Despite its imperfections, the conference aimed to secure a future for the next generation. It served as a stark reminder that the fight against global warming is a shared responsibility, one that requires collective action and compromise. It's a daunting task, but one we cannot afford to ignore. In a landmark case, Indonesian residents filed a complaint against Swiss cement maker Holcim, accusing the company of not doing enough to reduce carbon emissions. This was not just a legal battle, but a statement. It was a bold step towards holding corporations accountable for their role in accelerating global warming. These Indonesian residents, hailing from the island of Pari, were not merely fighting for compensation, they were fighting for their homes, their livelihoods, and their future. The island has been repeatedly battered by floods as a result of rising sea levels, a harsh reality of global warming. The people of Pari, like many others across the globe, are on the front lines of climate change, bearing the brunt of corporate negligence. Holcim, one of the largest carbon dioxide emitters worldwide, and the largest in Switzerland, was at the center of this legal storm. They found themselves faced with a demand for proportional compensation for their carbon emissions, a precedent-setting demand that could echo far beyond the Swiss courts. In response to the lawsuit, Holcim stated that climate change was a top priority for the company and argued that court cases against individual companies were not an effective way to address global climate action. But is it enough to simply acknowledge the problem? Or should corporations like Holcim be taking more proactive steps to mitigate their environmental impact? This landmark case, the first of its kind against a Swiss company, has sparked a global conversation about corporate responsibility in the climate crisis. It's a wake-up call. It's a demand for accountability. It's a plea for action. The world is watching, waiting to see if this case will ignite a shift in corporate attitudes towards environmental responsibility. Will more corporations be held accountable for their carbon emissions? Will they take the necessary steps to reduce their environmental footprint? Or will they continue to prioritize profit over planet? This case serves as a wake-up call for corporations worldwide to take responsibility for their carbon emissions. Because in the end, we all share this planet, and its future depends on the actions we take today. A viral tweet compared Arctic sea ice extent in June 2006 and June 2023, misleadingly implying that global warming is a hoax. But let's delve into the facts rather than the fiction. This tweet, which made rounds on the internet, was a classic example of misinformation. It compared two images of Arctic ice coverage from two separate years, suggesting that there was no significant change, hence no global warming. But this couldn't be further from the truth. You see, while those two snapshots might have shown similar ice coverage, they fail to tell the entire story. The actual trend of Arctic sea ice is one of steady decline. Sure, some years might have more ice than others due to natural variability, but don't be fooled. The overall trend over the last few decades is a clear decrease. In fact, since the late 70s, Arctic sea ice extent in June has decreased by about 3.8% per decade. Yes, you heard that right, per decade. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room: human CO2 emissions. Over 1 trillion metric tons of CO2 have been released since 1850, and guess what? This has significantly contributed to global warming. There is a direct link between the carbon we release into the atmosphere and the warming of our planet. This is not a theory or a speculation. It's a scientifically established fact. The tweet in question may have overstated figures for CO2 emissions, but the underlying truth remains the same. Arctic sea ice is declining, and human-induced global warming is the major culprit. So next time you come across a viral tweet or post questioning the reality of global warming, remember to look beyond the surface, dig deeper, question the source, and seek out the facts. Because while misinformation might spread like wildfire, the truth remains firm. The Arctic is melting and global warming is very much a reality. Now that we understand the gravity of the situation, what can we do about it? You might ask. Well, the road to combating global warming is a two-way street. It requires individual effort and collective action. As individuals, small changes in our daily lives can have a significant impact. Consider reducing your carbon footprint by walking, cycling, or carpooling to work. Opt for renewable energy sources if they're available in your area. Minimize waste by recycling and composting. And remember, every product we buy has an environmental footprint, so consider this before making a purchase. But our power extends beyond just our personal actions. We can also influence the institutions around us. Encourage your workplace, your school, or your local community to adopt more sustainable practices. Support businesses that prioritize sustainability and hold corporations accountable for their environmental impact. And then there's the power of the ballot box. Vote for leaders who acknowledge the reality of global warming and commit to taking action. Policy changes at the national and international level can have far-reaching effects in mitigating climate change, but none of this will be enough unless we all understand the problem. Educate yourself about global warming. Read scientific reports, watch documentaries, and attend seminars. And then spread that knowledge. Talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues. The more people understand the urgency of the situation, the more pressure there will be on governments and corporations to act. Global warming is a collective problem. It requires a collective solution, and that's where the power of unity comes in. When we stand together, our voices become louder, our actions more impactful. So let's unite against global warming. Let's demand a better, more sustainable world for ourselves and for future generations. Because in the end, this is our home. It's the only one we've got. Remember, every bit helps. Together, we can make a difference and secure a sustainable future for our planet. So let's get to work.